We are here once again with a new guest. We want to welcome you to this conversation. We want to we want you to be a part of this conversation as well. So, welcome to Big Voices, where we talk with theologians, missionaries, Christians from different countries. We are so happy that we've got a new guest to our show today, Marilyn. She is a missionary and she's going to talk to us a little bit about her story with the Lord Jesus Christ and how she got to know him as well. Welcome, Marilyn. Would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thank you so much for having me on here. Uh, my background is I grew up in somewhat of a religious home, I'll say it that way, and I eventually started asking people, "How do you know God exists?" And they'd look at me like, "Well, you just know. I mean, why are you asking? You just know." And that's the answer I got from everybody. And so I thought, these are the people that believe in God and they don't even know why. So I concluded that God was all made up. It was fabricated. There was no factual reason to believe in God. And so I became an atheist. So that was my start.
Oh, that's awesome. Tell us a little bit about your family. Where are you at now?
I am in Orlando, Florida, in the United States. And I wound up, and I'll tell you some of that story, but I wound up creating a website to help people believe in God that was visited by more than 50 million people last year, just during last year.
That's really powerful. So I want to know a little bit about how was your life before knowing Jesus? How was Marilyn before knowing Jesus? So tell us a little bit about of your background on that.
Okay. I was very happy. I really was not aware of any needs. But then I became friends with a Christian who really trusted God. She relied on him. You know, I would know things going on in her life and things she was praying about. I would see those answered. And she was a very intelligent person, very warm and caring about people. And eventually, I wanted God to exist. But, you know, you can't make something to be true just because you want it to be true. So turned out for a year and a half, I debated with her and asked her questions. And eventually she gave me a book when I was away from her and I was looking at this book. My defenses could come down and I could be honest. And that book is really what convinced me of God's existence. And much of the evidence in there, but even way beyond that book, we've put on our website, everystudent.com. What led me to finally make a decision is because I was tired of thinking about it. You know, I'm debating her and it's on my mind. And one day she said, "You know, I can't make this decision for you and God's not going to wait forever." And I thought that's probably true. I mean, that makes sense. So I went home and decided I was going to decide whether to believe in God or not that night. Like it was going to be one way or another because I was tired of thinking about it. And then I just reviewed evidence for 3 or 4 hours. And the evidence that convinced me was the Earth's perfect position to the sun. You consider the size of the Earth compared to the sun, and if we were a fraction closer, we would all burn up. If we were a fraction away, we would freeze to death. I mean, it's absolutely perfect. And then the properties of water, like water freezes from the top down, so fish live in the winter. And it has a unique surface tension, so water is drawn up against gravity to the tallest trees. It has a unique boiling point. So in our bodies, it keeps us from overheating or freezing. It just goes on and on and on. And I thought, this just isn't by chance. I saw God's design in it. So my prayer was, okay, God, you win. And I ask you to come into my life. You can do with it whatever you want. And I wasn't expecting anything. It just seemed appropriate that since God exists, he deserves to have my life in whatever way he wants. And that was it. That was how I became, started a relationship with God, not just a distant believing in him, but where when you ask Jesus to come into your life, he actually enters your life. And he changed my life dramatically.
Yes, definitely. What are some of the changes that Jesus did for you? And we all know that as we start a relationship with God, he will transform us. So how did that go for you?
Well, the first thing is I had a whole new set of questions. I had, prior to this, I had deeply studied philosophy. I would weekly, once a week, take on a new philosopher and try their philosophy because I wanted a philosophy that would always work. And so I went through Plato and Aristotle, Dostoevsky, Nietzsche. I mean, just on and on and on. And so when I did, and I found that none of those were particularly satisfying. They either were nonsensical to actually try to live by them, or they just didn't do anything. So when I asked Jesus into my life, I immediately had a whole new set of questions. Like, well, how does God view us? And what is important to him? And how are we supposed to live? And what does he value? I had a whole new list. And when I started reading, I read the Gospel of Matthew to begin with, and I was amazed at the insight that's there, and particularly amazed at how often he talked about his love for us. I was not expecting that, and it was surprising to me. And that actually had a profound effect in my life. It isn't that I didn't feel loved. I did. I had a very happy life, but one of my other close friends, about a few months after I had become a Christian, said to me, "Have you noticed a change in your life over the last few months?" And I said, "No, what are you talking about?" She said, "Well, I feel like I can share things with you and you care about me and you really listen and you don't make jokes and you don't, you seem to just care more." And I thought, wow, here's one of my best friends telling me I'm finally acting like a friend. It was a little embarrassing, but I think there was an insecurity that I might have had prior to that, and God's love just filled it, where I was able to genuinely listen and care about people more.
Definitely. And that's so powerful to know how God changes our character, the way we relate to other people. And I remember that I read one of your articles, and that you talk about how God makes everything perfectly, even in the Bible. Like you said that you went to work in California, and then you were thinking about, should I have someone with me living in the same apartment? And then somebody came to you and said the same thing. How was that?
Yeah. So I had decided that God wanted me to take a position with a Christian organization in California, in Southern California. And I was at my parents' home visiting, and I was asking God, who could I talk into moving out to California with me, to room with me, And I went through some names in my mind, and then I thought of this friend of mine from college. she was already established in a job and everything, but I thought, boy, she'd be perfect to room with. Well, a half hour later, she calls my parents' house and says, and I answer the phone, and I hadn't talked to her in months. And she said, I heard you're going with this organization in Southern California. Are you really? And I said, yeah. And I didn't know how she knew that. I'd only told one person somewhere else. And she said, okay, I've got the pots and the pans and the dishes. And I said, what? And she said, I'm going to the same organization, same location. Do you want a room together? I said, yeah, let's do that, but it was, God did things like that. I could give you 10 other examples just like that. But he was very clear in directing me to take this job in California. So,
absolutely. Yes, that is a very, I mean, it's a wonderful quote that you were sharing in your website. You can talk about your website in a moment, but you said, let God speak for himself. What does that mean when we are sharing the gospel?
Yeah, I think it's important. In our articles, anyway, on our site, we try to include a lot of scripture because I think there's power in that. I think, for example, when I was an atheist, my friend shared with me the verse from Jeremiah that says, if you will seek him with all your heart, he says, I will be found by you. And that struck me. Here I was, an atheist, but I thought, okay, if God's real, he's saying, if I seek him, I will be able to find him. Like, he won't be evasive. He won't be trying to hide. He's telling me I would be able to find him if he's real. And that was encouraging to me, even though I was an atheist. So I think there's power in sharing scripture with people.
Definitely. I really think that it's really fantastic when we use the Bible to share about Jesus Christ with other people. You are a missionary, so can you tell us about your mission work? What are you doing? Why did you decide to become a missionary back in 2000 or a little or a few years before, 1 year?
God gave me a desire to use media to reach as many people as possible. And this was before the internet. So my major, I have a degree in journalism. My major was advertising and PR. And I just wanted to make it easy for people to see reasons to believe in God. Just like I had gone through that year and a half of investigating evidence for God, I wanted to make that easily accessible to people. So when the internet came around, I was already with this organization, and I was doing some print articles for college campuses that were being handed out and that kind of thing. But I thought, oh my gosh, we should be using the internet. So someone that I had hired to help me in print media, I was talking to him one day. He said, well, I know how to build websites. You want to build a website? And I said, yeah, let's build a website. So here it was. Google came about in 1998. This was 1999, and I was feeling like we were way behind. And it launched in 2000, which was 4 years before Facebook. So we actually were a little bit ahead of the game. But since that time, as a missionary, I would be invited to speak at different global events within our organization. And when I would, I'd have people come up to me and say, can we have this site in our language? And so in response to them asking, they were willing to work on the translation, and so I said, okay. So it's now in 48 languages. Yeah. And then we built a site to help people after they receive Christ into their life. I wanted them to know how to grow, to know Him better. And so we built another site called startingwithgod.com. And that's
Wow.
in multiple languages. Yeah.
Definitely, including my mother tongue, Portuguese.
Yes, yes. Say that I will butcher the name of the site. I would say, I've heard it said Suskoya, but I don't think I'm getting it right.
Yes, correctly. Swiss coder.
Yeah? Okay, so
Yes.
I'm close. All
And
right.
then the other one starting with God is Conhecendo Deus.
Great. Thank
Awesome.
you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's really interesting. How to be a missionary that ministers to atheists. Nowadays, we know that we can gather with different people using the internet. Sometimes we find people that don't believe in God. How can we
Mm-hmm.
start presenting Jesus?
Mm-hmm. One of the great things of knowing that the site is there, first of all, the site is worded completely to people that don't know God, that may not even believe He exists. And so you can freely offer the site to someone else and feel comfortable that they're not going to come across things that they wouldn't understand. It's all worded very simply for them. Uh, and it isn't just an information site. Like, we're not taking questions and just trying to educate people. The site is built with the intention of persuading them to begin a relationship with God, but giving them emotional reasons as well as intellectual reasons. Like, when you think of John chapter 3, you've got Nicodemus saying, explain this to me. Who are you? To Jesus. And those are more intellectual questions. And then you move to the next chapter, John chapter 4, and the woman at the well is someone where nothing in life has satisfied her. And those are more emotional need. And so whenever somebody makes a decision about anything, buying a car or anything, you have to have emotional desire, but also intellectual basis for making a decision. So we try to do that on the site. Okay, so what I find is when you know that the site exists and you're a little bit familiar with it, God will bring people to you to share with, and it's remarkable. Like I was in a hotel lobby, and this woman standing next to me asked me, are you with our convention? And this is how I say it to people. I said, no, I'm with the site, and you can say this. I'm with the site that takes on the hard questions about life and God. Like, why is life so hard? And how do you even know God exists? Well, I said that to her, and she looked at me and she said, I'm an atheist, but I'm searching. I said, you will love this website because it will give you reasons to believe in God and show you how you can begin that relationship with Him today. May I give you a card to it? And I just handed her a little, business card. And she had tears in her eyes as she took it. She was so grateful. And that's what I find, that people, they're just grateful. So it comes up easily in conversations, I find. I've got a million examples, but like another time I was just in a fast food line and it was moving really slowly. And there was a university student standing next to me, and we both happened to look up from our phones at the same time. We were both doing, and so we started talking, and turned out he was a computer engineering major. So we started talking about web servers and all sorts of, privacy laws and that kind of thing. But then, I told him the name of the site, and he said, well, I'm I'm an atheist, but my fiance is a Christian. So I asked him, if you saw sufficient evidence for God's existence, would you want to know God? He said, yes. And I said, okay. So on the site, there's a little icon of a hiker with a backpack on the homepage. And I said, so I opened it up on my phone and I clicked on it. I said, if you'll sign up for this, it's a free email series, 7 emails that will give you evidence for God's existence. And he was so thrilled and he signed up for it. He put his email address in. But what struck me is in our short conversation, 3 different times he grabbed my hand and shook it and thanked me for talking to him. And that's what I find, that people are grateful that you're not cornering them. You're not getting into, a really awkward conversation. You're resourcing them and respecting their ability to draw their own conclusions. And they're so grateful to have a resource that they can go to.
Yes, fantastic. One of the things that I really admire about this work is that God will draw us the right people, right? Just like He drew you, He led to you some people that were open. They wanted to learn the gospel of Jesus. What are other contents of your website, and how can we use it in our communities, in our churches?
Well, I think just mentioning the site to people, I would recommend getting some cards that you could carry with you, because then it makes it very easy. And then you could just say, I'm connected to a site I think you'd like that answers questions about life and God. And then you can just hand them a card. We have a resource site called everystudent.info. So it ends with .info. And on there, you can get the cards that are already designed for the Portuguese site or English site or a number, and give that file, just a JPEG, you give to your local printer, upload it to a printer website. And I think it's good to carry cards with you. And then also, I would encourage you to sign up for that email series of that little hiker that you'll find on the homepage so you can see what it's like. And that alone will equip you quite a bit. You spend time on the site, read a few articles, see what you think about it. The more confident you are that this is a site you would want to offer to people, the more it will come to mind in conversations.
Yes, definitely. And I've read a few articles, and I'm sure that they are really helpful. And then I am a testimony of that. Yes, it has helped me to present Jesus Christ to other people, to study the Bible with other people. I've used some texts from that. I'm so grateful that you came here. You came here to talk with me, and you are sharing your story. And I've got one more question to you. What are you grateful for since you became a Christian? What makes you like, wow, this is so amazing. I'm so happy.
Oh my. Well, I'd say 2 things. One is that God's love and acceptance is so greater than I ever imagined, that we don't have to try to earn His favor or live up to certain standards so that He would approve of us. He already, as soon as we believe in Him, as soon as we invite Him into our lives, He fully accepts us unconditionally, and that love and acceptance never changes, ever. And so we live under his grace rather than a set of rules uh, or having to go through rituals, or there's no pressure. We constantly have a relationship with him that he maintains for us. And then secondly, it's been very exciting to be able to see what he's done in providing everything that I needed. I didn't know anything about building a website, and I'm running Google Ads in 14 languages. Who would have thought? So I've learned a lot, and he has provided everything that I've needed to know and guided in making decisions along the way. And that's been, I think, through my work, I see miracles all the time of the way that God has provided and directed. And I see so many people's lives changed. But even more than the people whose lives have been affected, I'm grateful for the way God has personally guided me in working on it.
Definitely, definitely. I'm so grateful for everything that you've been doing. It has been changing people's lives, and I like, as a linguistics student, I like when I see like so many languages so that people can
Mm-hmm.
access. So to to end our conversation here, what's one message that you would like to share with people?
Um, well, I suppose that God offers everyone a relationship with him. And a lot of people don't realize how easy it is to know him and to begin that relationship, that it's not a commitment to become religious. It's really knowing him in a very personal way. Growing up, I had the idea, before I was an atheist, I had the idea that God was there, but he was way out there somewhere. And I've come to see how personally he cares. I was wondering if you wanted me to read, if we had time for me to read one, comment maybe from people who have, just so you can see that people's lives really, they're hungry to know him.
Yes, we can do
Uh,
it.
okay. So, for example, this woman named Caroline, she said, she signed up for the Little Hiker email series.
Mhm.
And she said, although you don't know me, I feel that you've taken my hand and led me on a very special journey these last few weeks. So the emails come, I think, every 2 or 3 days apart. She said, I'm the kind of person who questions everything, and I have a deep need to understand. I have found that by reading the information you provided, I've been able to find answers to many of my questions. You have led me from complete denial of God's existence to not just believing in him, but knowing that he is there. The evidence you give was sufficient to convince this 33-year-old lifelong atheist, not an easy challenge. And there's hundreds of comments like that I could share. But so everystudent.info will equip you in all sorts of ways to use the sites. But Alex, go ahead and say the name of the two sites in Portuguese again.
All right, so we've got suaescolha.com, like everystudent.com, and then we've got startingwithgod.com. In Portuguese, that would be conhecendodeus.com.
Thank you.
Yes. Well, it was an amazing opportunity. As always, God is so amazing that He brings to us the right people with the right resources. And I'm so grateful for it. I'm so amazed that everything is working in the way that God wants to do. Nowadays we are able to present the gospel of Jesus Christ to many people in many nations. Like if we want to talk about Jesus to someone from Pakistan, from China, we can use the
Mm-hmm.
internet nowadays. We can use everystudent.com as a tool to study the
Mm-hmm.
Bible with other people. Marilyn, thank you so much for your precious time and for everybody who will be watching our conversation.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. See you next time. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.